In this lesson, we'll discuss Max's time configuration dialog, looking into settings we want to be mindful of even before we begin animating. Continuing where we left off from the last lesson, we can access this time configuration dialog to the right of our current time field, or even to the left if we were to right-click on our key mode toggle. But starting from the top, we have our frame rate, and it's very important that we choose the right frame rate before we begin animating. If we choose the wrong frame rate and want to switch it later on, we may notice that our animation is slightly off. So make sure that you do choose that right setting. We have NTSC, 30 frames per second, commonly used for games, 24 for film, PAL, 25, or we can choose our own custom frame rate if we'd like. Next to this, we have the time display. This is basically what gets displayed on our time slider. So right now, all we're seeing is frames. But if you like to use the motion picture engineer setting, you can use the one right underneath. You notice how that changes. Underneath that, we have frames and ticks. Ticks, basically, there are 160 ticks per frame. So if you were to click that on, you can have that setting available for you. And then underneath, we could even show minutes, seconds, and ticks if we like. I like to just use frames, so I'm going to leave it there. Underneath this, we can tell Max how to play back the animation, whether in real time, or you notice if we toggle this off, we can play the animation in reverse or with a ping pong effect, moving back and forth constantly. Great for studying the animation. And for reverse, it's the same way. It's often said that if your animation looks good playing in reverse, then it's going to look good playing forward. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that back on. You notice when it does get turned on, we can access the speed at which the animation is playing back. Okay, either a fourth, half, full, double, or quadruple the speed. Active viewport only. This is nice if we like to, let's say, work or see the animation in all viewports with this toggled off. With it toggled on, we'll see it in just one viewport. And then loop will constantly loop the animation. Underneath this, here's where we can tell Max what will be our active time segment. Currently, we have it set to 0 and 70. If we wanted to, we can switch this to 20, and you can see the update. Also notice how our length changes. Now it's only 50 frames for the active time segment. The frame count, this is the frame that follows our last frame. So you'll notice if we're working with a length of 50, if it were to include that, the next frame after frame 70 would be, this frame count would then represent that number. And then underneath that, we see our current time. So we know what that is already, whatever frame we're currently on. Now, rescale time, this can be very handy for us if we need to scale our active time segment and our keys at the same time. So to give you an example of this, I'll go ahead and set the start time back to 0. And just to show you a before and after, if I were to select one of these ships, currently this ship to my left, it's going from 0 to 50. But let's say if we wanted to increase the active time segment to 0 and 100. Well, going back to our time configuration dialog, if we were to go to rescale time, we can choose an end time of, let's say, 100, hit enter, choose OK, and you'll notice that the keyframes of this ship, they're no longer on that frame of 50. Its end key has now been moved to around 72. So that can be very helpful for us. But I'm going to go ahead and bring this back to where it was before. Simply typing in 70 once again. Okay, great. Now underneath this, this works with the key mode toggle. So this is basically how we can move key by key, whether by using the track bar or selected objects or toggling that off. We can use current transforms, or we can get to specific transforms if we like. I typically leave it at the track bar, but you never know, you may have to use these different settings if you find that that would work best for your current situation. Alright, so that's a quick look at the time configuration dialog. Again, make sure you double check this before you actually begin animating so you can avoid any headaches and have a comfortable animation process. And now that we're done discussing this, in the next lesson we're going to get into what we call the fun stuff of setting keyframes and learning the basics of animating in Max.